Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Michał Herda. I go online by the nickname of Fee, and I learned about 15 minutes ago that I will be moderating today. So, hello, everyone. And the panel we are going to be moderating is a roundtable of the topic of Lisp and AI. We have 5 guests listed. 3 of them have mysteriously disappeared for the time being. 2 of them have mysteriously disappeared. We have 3 of them. So, yeah, I would like a round of applause for Anurag, Martin, and Gábor. I hope that I got the pronunciation right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, you are armed with your own microphones. I don't need to pass mine around. But yes, perhaps we should or could start with a small, how to say, statement from your side regarding your attitude, what you think about Lisp and AI in general. So, I don't know, starting from my side.
Okay. So I'm Gábor. I work for Google. I'm an AI engineer I have been for a decade now. And my interest is mostly on the theoretical side. As it was mentioned already today, I also did some machine learning library for Lisp when my interest was more in competitions and libraries. And AI was fascinating for a long time because it was on the frontier of new stuff that has been around for 40 years, even at that time. But it felt new and untrendy. My personal view is that this time we are shifting very, very much to applications already. So as a research topic, it is becoming dominated by application considerations and business considerations. So I think one of the questions for this panel is whether we should be focusing on how to make Lisp capable of using the latest and greatest and how to integrate with the rest of the world, how to recreate some of that, or where we see ourselves with regards to this, and where we see, I think the main question maybe, where we see the rest of the world going, so that we don't just react, but foresee and have a direction to go, and hopefully the rest of the world will realize that's where they are going to. And I hope we will get some nice subjective predictions from this panel about these questions.
Most of you heard of my views on Lisp and AI this morning. For me, the biggest open question with AI in general is the social implications of AI, and to me that is sort of the burning question of our time, and the role that Lisp has to play in it. You saw some of it this morning. I sort of feel like we are back to the time where we're trying to train people with just core principles of computing rather than arcana, as I call it. And Lisp is a great sort of way to do that for us. But still, the bigger question is, the social impacts of what's coming.
Yeah, so I think most of you also attended my talk. So this, what Gábor already mentioned, this connecting of Lisp to some of these newer technologies. This is very, very important. But I'd like to go a little bit back as well. I mean, so currently I'm a professor at Osnabrück University. I'm heading the Semantic Information Systems group, and that's where the teaching aspect comes in. But I'm also heading the research department on cooperative and autonomous systems at the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence. And there, I mean, we're not only using deep learning or the statistical AI that you described, but we're actually applying and using and developing some of these classical things as well. So, okay, we're using knowledge graphs, and I mean, for robotics, we create semantic maps, so there's also some semantic information in that, and this is all working very well. And my personal experience or my personal path when I started to get in touch with Lisp at that time, actually this was quite some time ago, so let's say a little bit before 2000, and at that time, so that was also during this AI winter in a sense. This was connected to expert systems, and actually what we called it then knowledge systems, okay, because expert system, this was, okay, a little bit older, so knowledge system sounded a little bit better, but this system was implemented in Lisp, so in Common Lisp. I remember that we used MCL on Macs, and there was also some Windows implementation. And what I also liked at that time very much was this interactivity and the exploratory way that you could go about this, so just in doing the implementation. And I think this is one of the strengths of Lisp, and when we connect this to the symbolic part that was also mentioned this morning in the presentation, and we combine this with the human and AI way, because, well, maybe let's say the programmer doing standard tasks, maybe this can be replaced. I'm not sure, but I would say complemented by AI, right? So doing things together with AI, and then on this higher level, I think there can be a contribution that a language like Lisp with its declarative way and the interactive way that this can be done.
Thank you for the introduction, and I will allow myself to use one question that was already asked on the internet. After decades, the key question is, what is artificial intelligence? So, kind of a definition question. I would like to extend this a little bit, since we already know what artificial intelligence used to mean, in particular when one considers the roots, the foundations of Lisp and the good old-fashioned AI, as we call it nowadays. We more or less know what neural networks and language models are capable nowadays. How do you think that these two aspects, the past and the present, tie into what we can expect from the future, be it a month, a year, or maybe 10 years from now?
So, okay, let me take so the normal definition of AI, I think, is they say what the current systems cannot do. So it's a moving, it's a moving target, because if you understand how current systems are implemented, or just the basic structure, computation behind them, they are sufficiently stupid enough on the surface that you don't feel confident that this is the core of intelligence. On the other hand, of course, with lots of data, blah, 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 the behavior they produce is interesting and sometimes even useful. So I would do a bit of Wittgenstein and language here and say that the definition is uninteresting, utility and purpose. That is what matters.
Yeah, and I completely share that point of view as well. The actual definition is sort of for philosophers 50 years from now to decide, oh, this is what really it meant. For me, it's a collection of tools that has some incredible capabilities, and how those tools are going to impact what I see as the rest of the world outside of this domain of computer science. So yeah, I sort of tend to agree that trying to pin down a definition is somewhat pointless. You'll know it when you see it. So so let's focus on the tools and how to make them work for us.
Yeah, I mean, I can go with that. So focus on the tools. I mean, there are sub-definitions. So for artificial intelligence systems by OECD, for example, and I think one of the key components is that it's about incomplete information and also uncertain information. So that the world information is missing. And I think this is one of the points where this integration of learning systems and also like this explicit representation of knowledge, or like in the knowledge graphs, that this can really help.
Why not?
Yeah, mic is working right now. Answering the chat, yes, I'm not in the picture. I'm the least interesting part of the conversation, though. One question that I have is related to the, how to say, kind of a dichotomy, a kind of a contradiction in the nature of Lisp as something that operates on symbolic expressions and kind of has the nature of good old-fashioned AI inside it, like knowledge bases and kind of logical processing. And the current way of, like in which neural networks and language models operate, which is statistics taken to the extreme. And I say it as someone who is not really confident in the trust part of AI, where the stochastic or statistic part is, how to say, hard to scrutinize and hard to predict with regards to why and how it outputs the way that it does, which is, well, commonly known as hallucinations. In your cases, do you have any thoughts about composing these two worlds together, as in the strict symbolic and dead-end way in which the good old-fashioned symbolic AI has, how to say, been working, and the newer machine learning-based model into something that composes, let's hope, not the weaknesses of both approaches, but something that composes their strengths together?
Yes, exactly. So I'll just take it from there. I mean, this is what you just described. So connecting both, this is one of these things that are called neuro-symbolic. So you combine the statistical part with the symbolic part, and as you just said, the idea is to actually combine the advantages of both. So, for example, for large language models, you provide more context, you provide a knowledge graph in the specific query or in the process, and the idea is obviously to prevent or at least decrease the amount of hallucinations that happen there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have anything to add to that. There is a lot of work going on in neuro-symbolic computing, and there's papers coming out which are trying to fuse the things. Does it matter too much one way or the other? In certain applications, yeah, sure, it will make sense. I think in general, as a civilization, I think what we're trying to do is to make these tools work better for us or against us, as the case may be. So combining different approaches, trying to make things better, trying to combine, so already reinforcement learning is combined with deep learning, and together the two have produced, ChatGPT and things of the like. Gemini, as for our Google partner here. So I think combining different approaches, trying to make the tools safer, trying to make them better, it's an open field right now. We should explore all these options, and we should see how it makes the tools work better for us.
Okay, I'll go low level instead then. So for the symbolic nature is one of the discrete, the important feature is being discrete. And the continuous space computations that neural networks kind of do are really good at lots of things. easy to train them with backpropagation because you can take the gradients, but generalization can be problematic. So a bit out of domain data that is not, that the training set doesn't represent generalization to those can be tricky. And it has been the hope for ages that discrete systems would allow generalization in a more reliable way, just like, because if you emit a kind of a discrete program, you know, like, oh, it will, if it works for 10 inputs, it will likely work for 100. That's not true for a system that works with continuous values, which will accumulate errors and just degenerate. So that's one side of like the discrete stuff being useful, and the other half of it is when an AI system has to interact with the rest of the world. Many of the tools, which is kind of the frontier right now, many of the tools that it needs to use, for example, to perform web searches, work, take over your computer, many of those are actually digital systems and has discrete input-output interfaces. To work well with those, backpropagation won't help. And there has to be a synthesis on that level.
Right, and just to sort of to add to that, that's exactly right. You know, if you look at all the work that is going on with MCPs, if you haven't heard that term, model context protocol servers, the explicit rules of, you know, how the tools, which tools are available, how to use them, those are all made explicit in that sort of MCP protocol there. And so to support your point, that's exactly right. The prompt and the environment around the LLM becomes more knowledge graph based, if you will.
Were you talking about, are you using MCP with Lisp? Yeah. Are any of you using MCP with Lisp?
I'm not yet, but I have a few projects that I have planned around that.
So you may, because I've always thought that Lisp is a good, concise language to use to have an AI generate code. And because the AI, if I'll give a lightning talk in a little while. I made an MCP wrapper that's meant for using a Lisp backend. And the thing about Lisp is the AI agent really only needs a single endpoint to be able to do anything at all with Lisp. All it needs to be able to do is eval, really. So the AI agent can construct any sort of Lisp expression, and if you have an MCP tool, an MCP server which accepts Lisp expressions and evaluates them and gives the answer, that's pretty much all you need to interact with Lisp from an AI agent. That's kind of what I'll be presenting a little later as a specific implementation of one, but I agree with what you guys are saying, so by demonstration or by my actions.
Good, I look forward to seeing that.
This is going to be a boring panel if you all agree, so I hope.
To me, I see two main areas of activity with Lisp and AI. One of them is how do I call to AI from my Lisp program, so I can get call to have my Lisp construct a prompt, send it to the AI, and get the answer back as part of my big Lisp program. So I'll AI enable my Lisp program that way. But then the complete opposite is how do I have my AI drive, how do I have an AI drive the Lisp? So I think they're looking at it from two different directions, and important to keep those distinct.
Yeah, thanks. I think this is a very interesting idea. Maybe could you give a little spoiler on your lightning talk? So I'm just wondering about, so what is the direction in here? So is it like the AI is driving Lisp or Lisp is driving the AI?
Well, the thing I will present is the first one. So the AI becomes, basically you become a pair programmer with your AI. but in a different way than something like GitHub Copilot, where it's just in your editor. It's actually, the AI is actually able to experience the REPL and the Lisp interaction. And I've seen the AI actually get kind of addicted to that. It likes it. It likes this feedback loop that it gets.
Not just the AI, maybe. But yes, I have one question from someone from the audience.
Yes, it's interesting to hear you talk, but what I see is that artificial intelligence now reads documents, does it a lot faster and cheaper than humans can. I know that very many humans read documents all their lives, do routine work, and machines are much better and more accurate at doing machine work than we are. We get bored, we get sick, etc., machines don't. What do you think are the implications, or how should we think about the future if this artificial intelligence trend is going to set through really thoroughly? That means that all the functionaries, the routine work will be done by machines. How are we going to live decent lives with that circumstance, cultural and economic circumstance? Is that a clear question? It's a non-technical question?
It's not a technical question.
If
No.
you're interested, please try to answer. If you're not interested, say so, because it's a very hard problem for me.
I actually...
And also, before we answer the question to everyone online, we also have Dave and Vsevolod around, so welcome.
So no, that's a topic that me and a lot of other people that I talk to, we've been thinking about it for a number of years now, I should say. There are two schools of thought. The one school of thought is the traditional economist school of thought, which they say that, look, every technological revolution displaces a few people, but then those humans get retrained, and then they go off and do something else. I was looking up the statistics of agriculture. 100 years ago, 150 years ago, there was 60–70% of the people engaged in agriculture, and now in Europe, I think that number has fallen to like a few percent, 5–6%. In America, it's gone down even further, it's 3–4%. So all those people went off and did other things. So there is a school of economic thought that believes that the same thing is going to happen with AI. I don't belong to that school of thought. I actually believe that that is not going to happen for two reasons. One is the speed with which AI is taking over human activity is much, much faster than the previous technological revolution. So we don't have enough time as a society to retrain all these humans that are going to get displaced by AI. So we don't have the time, first of all. And second of all, what happened with the industrial and agricultural revolutions, physical labor was replaced with machines. So humans started doing mental labor. We started becoming knowledge workers. Well, AI is starting at knowledge work, right? So where are we going to go? You could think that, we're going to become creative people because we have these brilliant imaginations, but guess what? That's sort of not going anywhere either. So if you play the tape out, it doesn't look very promising. It looks like, this looks like, to use a term, which I probably shouldn't, but it looks like a shit show. But so I belong to that school of thought where it doesn't look like it's heading in the right direction. And the implication of that to me is that we're now going to start to see, we've already, especially in America, and some of, my context is very American, so I speak from that point of view. We've seen income inequality rise significantly because of the technical revolution. The distance between the haves and the have-nots, because of the last 30, 40 years has increased a lot. And now with the coming of artificial intelligence, that is going to get even wider. And it reminds me of what it used to be in medieval Europe. You know, speaking of being in Europe, but in medieval Europe, you know, there were the lords and the peasants, and the lords controlled all the resources, the noblemen. And we're looking at the world like there's a very small percentage of the population that's controlling all the machine resources, the AI resources, and the bulk of the population is sort of not participating in that. And that's the extreme scenario for me. I hope we never get there. You know, I hope as a society we have learned enough that we will be able to avoid it. But there are no obvious solutions. People talk about UBI and universal income and all of that, but I don't see that. I don't see that as a permanent long-term way of thinking about it.
Yeah, so for me, I would like to add a little bit like a different perspective on that. So let's say a little bit, to get a little bit positive here, right? So it's, I mean, you're right, of course, there's this revolution going on, but in some sectors, so since you mentioned the agricultural revolution, it's actually that for some cases, humans are not displaced or replaced, but it's just that technology, so for example, AI and robots, they solve some problems, so shortage of labor, because there's a shortage of skilled labor in some fields, and actually we're doing a lot of projects in this agricultural sector, and what we see is that, for example, robots are in high demand because they just, the workers are not there in some cases. In such cases, I think this can be a really good contribution by AI and by those systems, so to help in such scenarios.
Yeah, I was wondering about, can people have, what's the word? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was wondering if how people can have useful lives given the scenarios we are, I think, afraid of. Because there is...
using Lisp with AI.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's both an answer and a question.
You want to say?
It's both an answer and a question.
Sorry.
I think the answer is leisure. It's like the ideal Star Trek world. I mean, you talked about replacing physical labor before. And there is something which I like very much, which is currently circulating on social nets. It's a short sentence saying, and something which I can relate to on a personal level. I would like AI to do my laundry while I compose music, rather than AI composing music while I do my laundry. I can relate to that. And so I guess the subsequent question is, if AI, it seems to me that AI mostly replace boring stuff and boilerplate, like in programming, for instance. Nobody wants to write a GUI anymore. I didn't know how to use Maclean. I asked ChatGPT to write some boilerplate code for me, because that's boring anyway to write, okay? Especially when it's not documented. And what could we do in our lives more interesting than writing boilerplate code or whatever? The creativity, so in leisure, for instance, or in arts, are the interesting and very humanly parts. Not the laundry, not writing GUIs manually, I mean. That's the kind of idea. And so perhaps the subsequent question is, what is actually the driving force for people getting so excited about doing new AI systems? Is it to actually do something useful for people so that people can do more interesting stuff in their lives? Or is it only trying to recreate something as good as humans, in which case it sounds to me like it's more a driving force consisting of wanting to play God, but not really necessarily creating something actually useful for humans from the social perspective.
Since I have the mic, I also wanted to add back to the previous question, one comment, maybe it will follow up in this next part. So one thing I think was not mentioned, and this is from my point of view the dystopian scenario, but still we are, I think, heading into it, is what was shown in the Matrix, like the meta universe thing that they were trying to market some time ago, but it was lame. And now with the advent of all this technologies that they can create, they can take your picture, your identity, basically your voice and so on, and they create, maybe not now, but in a few years, a complete universe where you will be living with this imaginary, I don't know, artificial world. So just put goggles on your eyes, and you can stay there for how long. So we are heading towards this picture that was drawn in the Matrix, and this is actually what can happen if it goes that way, because you don't need all those humans. Just put them in a cell and feed them with some thing, and they will be very well engaged in this. Because if you look at current children and youth, they can be very much engaged into this technology, even with the mobile phone, not if they are in a complete sensory illusion. So this is definitely something from dystopian novels, but it can now it needed it. If several years ago it was just like a pipe dream of someone, now it's quite practical to organize such things. And even like the war, they are fighting with these drones, so they put goggles on and they directing the drones. But maybe the AI will do it, but still you can get this experience in the same way. So you can get the whole experience if you will. So this is one potential. But obviously maybe people will revolt and throw out all those AI words, or how to call it, and it will go into some, I don't know, other state, but it's just where it may go, it seems. And regarding this question, I think I don't know what drives many people, but it seems that the people are driven by just money, fame, and all this usual stuff. So they just go whatever is where they can get that, and it leads us into this not very good scenarios after all.
Yeah. Okay. So I do have a one. So I also think I think that in the short term anything can happen. I wouldn't go out on a limb to predict anything in the short term, but in the long run, I think we can think about the inevitabilities much more clearly in mostly economic terms. So there is a grounding to all of this that we are doing, which is not to go all the way to evolution, but maybe what is the value that we as humans produce? What is in the changing circumstances the value that we still add? And that is, yeah, of course, our professions are being commoditized at the very moment. So this is inconvenient and worrying. But in the long run, I think sci-fi wise, there is some kind of convergence between machines and humans, but that is also kind of an interesting, because it's probably quite some way off. But I think many of the things are kind of inevitable here. So machines will become more and more proficient at programming, for example. So I think we worry about Lisp here, like what is the role of Lisp? But I think programming in general will change incomprehensibly. Like you won't be able to recognize the kind of programming that will be done in a decade or 20 years. So we are thinking about symbolic, hard, whatever systems, textual programs. But the future, at least what I see, is that softer and softer, unexplainable neural network-like systems will take over more and more of this space. And we have to figure out in general what is programming useful, what is left for traditional programming in this world. What are the tasks that we can focus on, for which traditional programming is still a good tool. And that might be down the road. But I think that's the slightly longer run.
Gábor, I think that you have actually partially answered one question asked on the internet. Current LLMs seem to be bad at generating Lisp code, scoping rules are hard, user-defined macros are even worse. Yeah, they are precisely the kind of things that makes Lisp interesting to some humans. Does AI mean programming will turn into slop, or is there a plan or an opportunity in having AIs learn from Lisp to make AI-generated code less slop? Except if I understand you correctly, it's a topic of less just going for Lisp and more of programming in general. But also, Dave, you have something to say here.
Yeah, do you want to finish the answer to that if you started it, or?
No, I'm happy to.
Because I swing back. I mean, we're roundtable here is specifically about Lisp itself, so we'll bring it back to Lisp and AI. And in my experience, AI can generate horrible Lisp code, sure, but you know it's more subtle than that. If you're willing to be a little patient and give it the right context, it can help a lot. And for me, it's helped complete interfaces and documentation that I never would have the patience to do myself, as well as the artwork for logos and things that I don't have patience, I would never do. So I don't see a hard distinction between I only want the AI to do hard things, I'll do creative things. I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. But as far as quality of code, yeah, that's something that's cannot be taken for granted, but it is possible, and especially if you let the AI generate the code and you also have an Emacs slime connection to that same Lisp image, so the AI essentially becomes a pair programmer with you. So you're looking at the AI's code, correcting it, it's learning from your corrections and generating a better one the next time. But again, the limitation is with the current systems, you have a conversation, and after a certain number of back and forth, it starts to degrade. So you have to start with a fresh conversation quite frequently, because it's cumulative. It's adding up all the tokens that went back and forth from the beginning of your conversation. Every new prompt you send, it's also sending all the old stuff with it. So so your new question starts to get lost in the noise if you go on too long and you have to start a fresh conversation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It can generate bad Lisp code, but it actually also generates very good Lisp code if you direct it to do it that way. So I would contest the assumption that it always generates bad Lisp code. So I want to come back to what the question that Didier asked, which is what I'm sort of starting to notice a lot of people saying now is that they don't want AI-generated stuff. They want the human stuff. They want the human connection. They want to know that what's produced here matters, to connect emotionally with whatever art they're consuming. But again, it's sort of a 90-10 thing, right? You're a musician. You probably understand this better than I do. But to the musicians that I've talked to, they're like, look, yeah, we'd love to produce and compose things and all of that, but 90% of my income comes from doing, stupid jingles or stupid things, and that are inconsequential. And if 90% of my income there is going to get consumed by AI because AI is just generating that throwaway creative that people need, then I'm just left with that 10%, and how do I make a living doing that? So that's sort of been the concern. Not just for them, we saw this also in the Hollywood writers' strikes, right? They put it in the contract. You can't use AI to do our scripts, and that makes a lot of sense. So there is this this backlash, the societal backlash towards doing that. And we were having a discussion this morning, is that can't programmers do that? Can we not sort of form a labor union that pushes back on this use of AI for generating programs? So far, that hasn't been a movement to do that, simply because everybody loves the fact that your code is getting completed by Copilot, and it's like, yeah, I love this fact, So people aren't complaining too much about it, but yeah, maybe there'll come a time where people will start pushing back.
I wanted to add, circling back on the points that Anurag mentioned in the morning, that actually, from my point of view, it's a good time, it's a better time to be a Lisp programmer now, because first of all, yeah, we didn't have a lot of like a big piece of the pie. So even if like the biggest piece is taken out by the AI, it doesn't affect us so much. But at the same time, what is I think important is what Anurag mentioned in his meta dot everywhere. Yeah. So this approach that worked for me in this field when I worked, I think I saw a lot of value in it, and it gave back a lot to me. Like when we did our software that was connected to these AI tasks, is still this basic, so say, original Lisp approach, like when you that is built on around collecting some knowledge and creating some framework around that knowledge. So, and this is where Lisp is still. It doesn't mean that it should be necessarily like knowledge graphs in some form that is present in the industry. But in some way, this knowledge should be kept in the application, and then Lisp provides excellent tools to work with that knowledge, expand it, give experts, domain experts, ability to work with this knowledge. And this is this was actually the, so to say, secret behind success of many companies, of many Lisp companies, and many know it here. But now it still remains relevant, I think, because in this age when you move to this black box, when the AI is doing all the stuff and you don't control it, and eventually it just replaces you and you cannot do anything about it. If you this Lisp approach allows you to retain control, definitely if you care to do it. So if you're not constrained by the requirements of your, whoever pays your bills, but still if you're doing your own project or some way, you have a say in this. So no one is impeding you from creating a system where AI will be controlled by your code that works with this knowledge, yeah? And it can be just a part of the system, like an agent in the systems, provider of some knowledge, but it shouldn't be the driver of the system. And so Lisp still allows it, and so this power is still present. And even if like all the skilled coders and all the proponents of Java and Python and so on go out of business because they don't understand what happens, like they just provide it with tons of code that they cannot maintain. And like in Lisp world, you can still, like even being one or a programmer or a small group of several programmers, you can still grasp a big system and maintain it and continue having a leverage to create a big system that solves serious tasks and not be dependent on this thing. So just utilize it whatever necessary, but have a right to say no. This is I will do it on my own terms, so to say. So this is.
Are there things that we as a community could or should do to improve the out-of-the-box experience of Lisp programmers with generative systems that generate Lisp code? So there are frustrations expressed about the quality and maybe the difficulty of prompting in order to get good quality. Is there something that we should be doing to improve the out-of-the-box LLM experience for Lisp programmers?
Well, you need to send context information with your prompts. So if we could develop a nice library of Lisp context information that people could pull from to send with their prompts when they're trying to generate Lisp. Because you can't send the whole hyperspec, it's too big. So you have to, and then there are techniques where based on the prompt itself, it generates a nice concise piece of context to send with it. I forget what that's called, but that's the, these vector databases. You process your whole reference manual into a vector database. Then when you send your prompt, there's a program that pulls the relevant bits from that vector database and sends with your prompt. That will give a better out-of-the-box experience to newbies coming to try to use a generative system to write in Lisp. And there's a lot of potential there because I can't get a customer for my system because up until recently, how do you use your system? Well, you sit down in front of this blank Emacs window and you write code to design your transmission system or whatever it is you're trying to generate with this 3D modeling tool that we have, which is Lisp-based. But now they'll be able to at least get a framework from the generative. They're not going to, never again will someone have to sit down in front of a blank Emacs screen and write define object and from scratch. That's the thing. That much I can say. And that the other thing is, just, when you talk about AIs taking over everything, it's going to do everything, is an AI going to design this building totally and give you a 3D, like an IGES file or a step file or some kind of a rendering of this building? Maybe. But then how much deeper does it go if you want to tweak it? How can you trace how the decisions were made to put things in different places? Whereas if the AI is generating a Lisp code that generates the building, now you can tweak it. I think it's pretty much similar to what Vsevolod was just saying.
Things that, from a user experience perspective, at least the state of the art, is things like Cursor and Bolt, which are plugins into Visual Studio, VS Code, where you have a chat window which can affect how the code is written, generated, everything. So it's that's sort of the state of the art, where you have this conversational piece that is affecting the files that you're seeing in your editor screen and all of that. And I think we can recreate a similar experience with Slime or whatever it is you want to use within Emacs to actually affect the contents of your buffers and things like that. So it actually takes an active role in doing the code editing while talking to a backend at the same time. And also to your point, you can compile this context of how you want the code generated, the specific points that you're looking for. One of the things I try to tell it, which it never listens, is I tell it no function should be more than 10 lines, but it cannot count. It doesn't. That doesn't work. So I still get big functions that I have to go back and say, break this into smaller functions, which it does then do, and actually produces pretty decent code.
Okay. You want to move on to the next question?
Yes,
okay,
since we are slowly running out of time, I have one more question from the internet and one more from the live audience here. The question from the internet. There is the process of trying to extract features and heuristics from neural networks known as neural network hermeneutics. Does it seem like a viable research venue and future activity for further encoding in more classical deterministic programming systems? Does it sound like anything that...
Yeah.
They're talking about stuff like Anthropic is doing recently with trying to do essentially an MRI scan on the AI, like you would do on a human brain, and see where things are lighting up and when, and they're trying to figure out some of the actual mechanisms, how it's working. And they're asking if Lisp could be useful for representing some of the results from those studies. Is that what that is? Or
I have only the question and not the context. Maybe the context will appear on the IRC chat, but I don't know just yet.
That's my question, actually.
Yeah, it seems like we have a confirmation. It sounds like what the person asked. So, yes.
I don't know.
We are kind of back to like the discretization question. You can do it post hoc like this. People did it before. You can try to force some kind of discrete representation up front on the model. You can have a neural model generate programs. The jury is out as to what makes sense and what works better. So this is very much an open question.
Yeah, and I think it also is, it's a very important question to have answered, because the explainability will soon start becoming a legal issue. You know, you're going to have decisions that have been made by AI, but nobody really can explain why they've been made. And some lawyer needs to stand up there and defend it. And he's going to go and turn around and ask the engineers, what the hell did we just do? So it's an important question to answer, and some of these techniques, I think, are going to be helpful. But I also have my doubts about how successful they would be.
Yes.
Just the number of parameters that you're dealing with and trying to extract structure out of those things is just, you know, I'm even amazed that they've gotten what they've gotten so far. So I have grave doubts that we will be able to reconstruct it like that.
I mean, for the explainability, I'm absolutely positive on that, and at least in Europe, it has become a legal issue. Right. So, since there is this AI Act, so yeah, I think this definitely needs to be taken into account. To what extent? I mean, about the let's say the effectiveness. I mean, this is an active area of research in different avenues, but yeah, we will just see.
Just a spicy take on this. I don't believe in explainability at all. I think that's a kind of a red herring, and it's undefined at the fundamental level. What do you mean by explanation? So responsibility might be a substitute. Someone should take responsibility for the actions. Explanations are a dime a dozen.
I think we could discuss a long time about this. What I also like about this is the controllability, actually. So responsibility is one thing, and controllability as well. So whether you can actually control the system.
And we'll probably have time for one or two last questions. Yes, Wojtek, I see you, but there was one question first.
Yes, I wanted to ask about, do you see AI being used to aid compilers, either to perform optimizations ahead of time or just in time? Is it a possibility, or is it something already done?
Yeah, absolutely. I see that as a possibility. Do we need to go there yet? I don't think so. You know, many compilers are very good right now. Do I want to, you know, mess with them? Absolutely not. But you know, if there is an opportunity to make something more optimal, and I can direct an AI to do that, yeah, there is definitely you know, opportunities to do that. But you know, I don't think it's, to me, a requirement to touch anything right now. Like, our compilers are very good. Let them do what they're doing. If I come up with a new processor architecture, yeah, maybe I would go back and think about using AI to do that.
And last question.
I'd like to make a small corollary to the explainability / mechanistic interpretability thing, because my probably very incomplete understanding of it is that it's fundamentally hard because the means of internal state representation in large language models and other large models is inherently like inscrutable from the human point of view, maybe because it's being optimized for the model itself and not for other means. Now, I've been hearing that it's very hard, and it's an unsolved problem, to impose any kind of goal structure on a model other than through training, which might be optimizing for the wrong thing. So the thing is, the question is, I guess, do we have any ideas how we could maybe constrain models to keep their state representations readable enough, say using S expressions, so that they could be audited from a more Lispy point of view?
Not to my knowledge, in a way that doesn't get in the way of training. But I think the problem is maybe more fundamental than neural networks having a distributed representation over hundreds of thousands of neurons. I think it's just fundamentally a computation. It's hard to establish a chain of causation or something, a tree-like causations, when computation does not happen that way. So you cannot necessarily post hoc impose a logical proof on a system that doesn't work that way. There are approximations that you can do. You can backprop through, like from a prediction. You can, if you have a neural network, you can backpropagate through and find the training examples that have the largest effect on this prediction, stuff like that. Useful. Is it explanation? Is it causation? No.
Yeah, I mean, the closest sort of approximation to that question right now is you can prompt the model to explain why it came up with the answer. Now, that doesn't mean the explanation isn't a hallucination, but it might sort of give you a little bit of insight into, you know, how it came to that conclusion. And some of these chain of thought systems, you know, I often, you know, when you observe their output, they're surprisingly human. The chain of thought is actually making a lot of sense. So I don't know if those will suffice as quote unquote explanations. But you know, Gábor is right. At the fundamental level, you can't. It's just the math doesn't support it.
Do you have evil intentions? No.
And with this, I will need to close since we have run out of time. And yes, thank you for the panel, Lisp and AI. And I think it's the end. Yeah, thank you.